Hi, my name is Paul Christensen, and I'm a faculty member of the Department of Classics at Dartmouth College, and I'm here today to talk to you about liberal arts education at Dartmouth. One of the basic facts about Dartmouth is that it prides itself on being a liberal arts institution. So, for example, if you went on the Dartmouth homepage and you looked under the section labeled Dartmouth at a glance, you'd see what we see on the screen. Dartmouth describes itself as a liberal arts institution. And so you might ask some basic questions. What does it mean to go to a liberal arts institution, and why might you want a liberal arts degree? What's in it for me? And there are two kinds of answers to that question, prudential and poetic. What we're going to focus on today is the prudential answer, and we'll save the poetic one for another day. So as we start to think about an answer to that, we might start with a simple observation. Here's a bunch of different things that you could major in if you went to the University of Delaware: accounting, athletic training, fashion merchandising, finance, financial planning, etc. What do all those things have in common? What they have in common is that you cannot major in any of them at Dartmouth. Dartmouth does not have any of these majors. And so you might ask yourself, why is that? Is Dartmouth unaware that accounting is a profession? Do we not think that Dartmouth graduates might want to work as accountants after graduation? Why wouldn't we give them an accounting major? And there's a good answer to that question, I promise you, and by the time we get to the end of this, you'll understand that we have a plan and it makes good sense. We can find the answer to these and many other questions by starting to think about the economy in which we live and work, which could safely be described as capitalism. And a key fact about capitalism is that it's all about capital, which can be defined as accumulated resources that facilitate productive activity. And capital comes in various flavors. So, for example, one flavor is financial capital. And if you possess financial capital, if you had lots of money, people would pay you to use it. Another flavor of capital is intellectual capital, and that's mastery of information and skills that facilitate productive activity. And so if you had intellectual capital, people would pay you to use that as well. If you had intellectual capital in the form of being an engineer and knowing about information about engineering and skills that go with engineering, people would pay you to use them. Now, a key issue for us is that there are two different components when it comes to intellectual capital: information and skills. In order to help us understand the profound difference between those two forms of capital, it may be helpful to look at some specific scenarios. Imagine for the moment that I feel like Dartmouth's just not paying me enough money, which possibly could be true. And I want to be a good capitalist entrepreneur, and I want to reach out and do something interesting and innovative. And so I decide to found the Christensen Tax Academy. And here's my proposition. I'm going to prepare you to take and pass the test to become certified to work preparing tax returns in the state of New Hampshire. That's what I'm going to do for you if you come to the Christensen Tax Academy and pay me lavish amounts of money. What's my program to help you achieve that goal? We're going to provide you with written materials to study and memorize. We're going to give you 10 hours of individualized tutoring in the classroom, and we're going to give you one practice test, after which we'll analyze your results and supply suggestions on how to improve. Now, how do you feel about that as a plan? Well, I think all things being equal, it's a pretty reasonable plan. It actually could work, and I might become a wealthy entrepreneur from the Christensen Tax Academy. Well, let's think about something similar but different: the Christensen Tennis Academy. Here my proposition is very different. My proposition is I'm going to prepare you to play tennis at an elite level in college and possibly professionally, and I don't care if you've never played tennis before at all. If you've never picked up a tennis racket, come to the Christensen Tennis Academy and it's all going to work out beautifully. You're going to be a master tennis player right after we're done with you. And here's my program. My program is we're going to provide you with written materials to study and memorize, offer you 10 hours of individualized tutoring in the classroom, and give you one practice match, after which you analyze your results and supply suggestions on how you might improve. Now, how do you feel about that plan? If you've been paying attention at home and you're thinking just a little bit, you should conclude that is one of the stupidest plans you have ever heard in your entire life. This thing is completely doomed to fail. And the question is, why is that? Why would the Christensen Tax Academy work, but the Christensen Tennis Academy end in utter failure? And that has to do with the difference between information and skills. Information can be acquired relatively rapidly through study and memorization. But skills, like hitting a tennis ball, require regular, continuous practice, preferably under the guidance of an expert coach. So information can be acquired quickly, but skills require lots of continuous hard work to get to master. So we have the Christensen Tax Academy, the Christensen Tennis Academy. How is any of this stuff relevant? And the key issue for us is to remember that there are two components in intellectual capital: information on one hand and skills on the other. information is not nearly as valuable as skills. Why is that? Well, okay, there are a lot of reasons for that. One reason is this, is that there is a lot of information and more of it all the time. So even if you were going to focus on the information for a specific job, there's more of it than you can possibly learn, and it's multiplying so fast that you can't possibly keep up. Another issue is computers. Just over the course of the last 10 or 20 years, we're going through a massive transformation in information storage and retrieval. And so it used to be difficult to store and retrieve information, so lots of it had to be stored in your head. But now it's so much easier to store information and retrieve it from computers that it becomes much less valuable to have to go through all the process of stuffing it in your head, because all of that stuff can be stored on a computer and accessed anytime you want. And a third thing is that it's simply difficult to know what information you'll need for your job 5 or 10 years from now. And this goes back to this issue of flexibility. Information is very specific, but skills are highly flexible. In a modern workplace where things are evolving with blinding speed, and there are new jobs now that didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago, and we can be certain that 5 or 10 years from now there'll be lots of jobs that don't currently exist now, leaving school with just information puts you in a difficult position because that changes all the time and your job could disappear. But if you leave with a set of skills which are highly flexible and can be used in lots of different jobs, you're much more likely to have a great career as time goes on, because you can do all sorts of different things and you can take on jobs that don't even exist the day you graduate. So all that sounds wonderful, but should you believe me? Am I just making this stuff up, or is there actually any evidence that employers actually care more about skills than information? Let's take a look at a survey carried out in 2013 by Hart Research, in which they talked to a bunch of major employers. And they asked them about, do they care about what people major in as an undergraduate? Do they care about skills or information? And here's what the survey concludes. Employers recognize capacities that cut across majors as critical to a candidate's potential for career success. And they view these skills as more important than a student's choice of undergraduate major. Nearly all those surveyed agreed that a candidate's demonstrated capacity to think critically, communicate clearly, and solve complex problems is more important than their undergraduate major. What can we conclude from this is that employers really do care mostly about your skill set. And when you come to them and say, I would like to work for you and you're going to pay me for my intellectual capital, the intellectual capital they care about the most is your skill set, what you can do, not what you know. Let's think about this another way. Let's imagine for the moment that you graduate from college and you go to work in the Human Resources Department of Christensen Consulting, yet another one of my ventures as my business empire expands across the globe. And I've told you I need you to hire someone for me. We have 4 things we want them to have. We want them to have the capacity to solve complex problems using well-developed critical thinking skills to analyze qualitative data. We want them to have the capacity to communicate clearly and effectively, orally and in writing. We want the capacity to work cooperatively with others, both employees and clients. And we want good knowledge of the computer manufacturing industry, which is where most of our clients come from. The ideal candidate will have all 4 qualifications. And we interview hundreds of people, and we boil it down to 2 candidates. And here's the trick. One candidate is great. He's just phenomenal in qualifications 1 through 3. He's a fantastic problem solver, communicates great, works beautifully with other people, but knows absolutely nothing about the computer manufacturing industry. And I have a second candidate who's terrible in skills 1 through 3, but has incredible knowledge of the computer manufacturing industry. Here's the trick. You're working for Christensen Consulting as my human resources person. Which of these 2 candidates do you hire? The answer to this one from the boss is pretty clear. You hire the first candidate who's great at qualifications 1 through 3. Why would you do that? Because what you need to know about the computer manufacturing industry can be learned fairly rapidly, and I can teach it to you because I'm an expert in the computer manufacturing industry. So I can bring you in and teach you that right away. But could I teach you how to solve problems? Could I teach you how to write effectively, to speak well in public? Could I teach you to work cooperatively with others if you were bad at all those things? No. I'm not equipped to do that. I'm not an expert in teaching those skills, and it would take me years to do it. And during those years, you would not be very valuable to me. So I'd much rather have someone who comes in with a set of skills and I can teach them the information than have someone come in with information and then have to teach them the skills, which are going to be much more difficult to acquire. Okay, so where are we? We've covered a lot of ground, and let's get back to where we started from and think about why you would want a liberal arts degree. And the answer is this. is that liberal arts institutions like Dartmouth focus on teaching you skills, not information. And that's why we do not have an accounting major. Accounting majors are about acquiring information that helps you be an accountant. But at Dartmouth, we don't care about that. We care about the underlying skill set that a really good accountant would have. For example, really good quantitative reasoning skills, being able to use numbers to solve complex problems. And so we would want to train you in using quantitative reasoning skills and how to develop those things and be really great at them. And our expectation is that after you graduated, you could acquire whatever information you needed to do an accounting job fairly rapidly. So we're going to focus on the skills that underlie jobs like accounting rather than focusing on the information specific to a specific job like accounting. Why do we do that? Because we think the skills are much more valuable and they give you a huge range of flexibility in career options. If you've gone to school to be trained as an accountant, you will work as an accountant because that's the thing that you know. If you go to school and be trained in quantitative reasoning, there are dozens of different jobs that you could have over the course of your lifetime, and you'd be prepared and highly flexible to do all sorts of different things. So listen, a liberal arts education is not for everyone. A liberal arts education is a long-term investment in yourself. If you're smart, hardworking, intellectually flexible, driven to succeed, capable of learning quickly, our hope is that if you come to Dartmouth and get a liberal arts degree, we're going to prepare you to flourish after you leave here with a set of skills that you'll be using not just in your first job, but in your job 30 years after you graduate, and possibly doing a job that doesn't even exist right now. Lots of times when I talk to my students, I tell them, I don't care if you get a good job after college, and they look vaguely alarmed. And then I follow it up and I tell them, I don't care if you get a good job after college, because what I really care about is that you have a great career for the rest of your life. And what Dartmouth does is prepare you not to get a good job, but to have a great career.